Hi, I'm Allison.
Hi, I'm Cara.
Welcome to our weekly podcast where we talk all things career, beauty, and lifestyle.
It's time for Beauty Break. Hi, I'm Cara. Welcome to Beauty Break.
I am Allison, and welcome to another episode of Beauty Break.
We are here this week with another beauty breakdown. But first, I have I have one question for you related to hair.
Okay.
You had given me some hair advice, like how to use some products, and I was going to wash my hair that night. And you said to me, don't go to bed with wet hair.
Oh, I did.
And
Right.
I'm wondering, I've heard that before, and I'm just
Yeah.
wondering why not sleep with wet hair?
I think there's a couple of things that come into that. But also, before I answer this, I just want everyone to know that I did not know what she was going to ask me today. It's like 110%. She was like, I just have a question for you. And I was like, ooh, okay. And I have a question for you too. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
So the reason why you shouldn't go to sleep with wet hair, a couple reasons. Number one, going to bed with wet hair can actually cause some conditions such as like psoriasis. It can like make it, if you already have it, it can make it a little bit like more agitated because it's wet, it's moist, and usually it's like a dark, warm area because it's nighttime and you're laying on it. So that can create like a nice like breeding ground for that kind of thing. Another thing that's really important too as well is when most people do go to bed with their hair wet, it's usually in like some kind of a messy bun form. And you have to understand that when hair is wet, it's in its weakest state. And what does that mean? That means that its elasticity, meaning like how far it can stretch, can kind of be overstretched during that period. If you think of your hair like spaghetti, right? Boiled spaghetti has that elasticity until it finally breaks. Well, if your hair, thinking of it in a spaghetti like metaphor, is tangled up in like a messy bun and then it sets like that overnight, it's kind of drying in that expanded form. And then you take it out and you're like, oh, now I need to brush my hair. And you're kind of just brushing out hair that's maybe in a little bit of an abused phase of it.
And so it could break.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can
wow.
cause breakage. You can cause it to be more tangled. You can cause split ends that way. And it's just at the end of the day, not a healthy place for your scalp to be in. Now, I'm not saying you need to have your hair like bone straight, like dry,
Right.
like super intense, but the scalp area should be where you focus on with maybe like a rough dry and then maybe braid into the ends,
Nice. Okay.
but just kind of have something that's not super wet.
Yes.
Yeah, and it can also like you can wake up with like a crazy cowlick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it could like get
Yeah.
crimped into a unflattering shape. And
Just as an aside, when I was in middle school and I wanted to perm my hair, but I couldn't, I would do fine braids when my hair was wet and then sleep with it and then wake up in the morning and I'd have like,
Yeah.
super curly hair.
yeah,
But clearly it was not good for my hair though.
yeah, you're like reforming the salt bonds of your hair, which is when your hair's wet, and then you form it into a shape and dry it that way.
Okay. I will be, not that I was sleeping with wet hair, but I always wondered, like, why not?
Why not?
Would I get a cold but no, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's one of the same kind of jokes where it's like, oh, if you go outside, you're going to get the flu. Well, it's like, actually, you might just like catch like the chill and then, get sick from that. Right. You're not necessarily going to get the flu.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. My question for you
Yeah.
is actually something that we've dealt with before, but I think it helps me out so much as someone who does struggle with this. I get like a dermatitis on my mouth. And we talked about this in a previous episode because I like jumped into it. But I know the girlies and boilies and they, thems and humans of the world that struggle with this. And it is an uncomfortable thing, right? Because it is on your face. It is around your mouth. And I know when it first came out for me, I was in 6th grade and it was like around my nose. So it was very uncomfortable. So as an esthetician, what do you recommend for people who are dealing with like the dermatitis? Like what is your go-to? You saved my skin on it, by the way.
Yes, I'm so happy about that. So the dermatitis around the mouth, perioral dermatitis, as it sounds, right? There's a lot going on with your mouth, between eating and touching and toothpaste, and it can just break down the barrier of your skin again because we're touching our mouth so much. If you're wiping your mouth, toothpaste is being left behind. Citrus can also aggravate dermatitis. So if you get this like little weird rash, stop all active products. So any kind of exfoliation, retinols, and just cut way back to a cleanser and a moisturizer until it clears up. And it can take a while because sometimes it can become systemic. So it's kind of like in your body and it can take some weeks to clear up, but eventually it will. And I generally tell people at least change their toothpaste to something without sodium lauryl sulfate, which is that foaming agent. And Sensodyne is a good one for that because it doesn't foam. And also, it can also be caused by fluoride. So you could also switch to a non-fluoride toothpaste. But it's hard to say what's causing it, but you want to just keep a super simple routine and no active products until it clears up.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
For all those who are struggling, step number 1.
Yes.
Cut back.
Cut back.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cara.
Yeah. Thanks, Allison.
I do believe it is time, drum roll, for our beauty breakdown guest today. Today, we're excited to welcome Lisa Chiovaro, Senior Director of Marketing Technology at Opella. Lisa spent 7 years at L'Oreal, where she drove digital marketing initiatives for mega mass beauty brands like Maybelline and Garnier. Her expertise spans all areas of digital marketing, from website development and CRM to media strategy, influencer marketing, and social media. Prior to L'Oreal, Lisa was at T-Mobile during the height of the uncarrier movement, where she developed her customer-first mindset and learned how to make an impact with large organizations. We're thrilled to dive into her insight on digital strategy, brand engagement, and creating meaningful conversations with consumers.
Nice. Wow.
I know.
That's quite a career.
Yeah, thanks for that intro. It sounds even better when you say it.
Well, impressive though.
Yeah, very impressive. And I want to just shout out you personally on like a fun level because you have been a client of mine for a very long time. And it makes me really just happy inside to be able to take some of our conversations that we have had over the years and bring them to others, because having you in my chair has educated me on like corporate culture and things that I've never really been affiliated with. I can't speak for you. Have you been?
No.
Yeah.
More independent, smaller businesses.
Yeah. Or like salons, spa, release. So I think it's really insightful to hear about that and kind of bring that out of the salon that we've kind of shared and talked before.
Yeah, we've had some good conversations. And I have to just say that you've also given me some great ideas. So, great ideas can come from anywhere and even apply in a huge organization. So,
bit of a muse, aren't you?
Yeah, but she is too.
Yeah.
she's such a great brainstorm partner.
Seriously.
Yeah.
We like think outside of each other's boxes, I think. It's kind of the way.
I love it.
All right. So how I kind of want to run asking you some questions today is truly just asking you some bullet point questions and seeing where you want to take and lead with this. So without further ado, Cara, would you like to start us off with some questions?
What was your journey like breaking in to the beauty industry, and how did you navigate those early steps? Like what kind of brought you into beauty and the marketing part of it?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty interesting because I didn't seek out beauty. It kind of found me because of my data background. Like, when I was at T-Mobile, I'd actually gone back to school because I was working on a data project and just realized that I needed to learn how to like talk the talk with the people that I was working with, like the real data experts. And so, it was just super interesting to me. And so I went back and I got like the equivalent of a 2-year degree. It was their certificate. And, at that time, data the data capabilities of large corporate organizations was becoming just more and more important for marketing, right? And how to use it for brands, to build personalization for consumers, right? To make sure you're like getting content to them that's super relevant at the right time. And so when I was looking, so I was in Seattle at that point when I was looking to move back to New York. L'Oreal just happened to be building this big data capability. And so I randomly actually applied online, into their website portal. And they called me, and a good fit at the time. So it was that part of it was really, lucky, I would say, from that perspective. But it kind of shows you that, like, even in a beauty industry, like, you don't necessarily have to have beauty experience, right? Because there's such big, especially in a big organization, you can be in finance, you can be in data, you can be in, psychology or sociology and be interested in consumer research, and find a spot in beauty. So that part was really interesting because it's not very connected. And people would tell you, I mean, when I got the offer, they'd be like, well, you don't even wear makeup, so it was like an interesting fit for me. But it was a really like open, like forward-thinking organization. So, but honestly, when I got there, I was so deer in the headlights for probably 6 months. It was just so different. I was at T-Mobile, was like a tech organization. It was very, very different. So
did it feel like you were at a beauty brand, like when you were in the office?
Very much.
Like shampoo bottles everywhere.
Yeah, it's exactly kind of like you would think it was, like products everywhere.
Yeah.
So people walking around, like swatching you, colors on your wrist,
Dream.
Yeah, it was, try this and how's this color look? And you get first dibs on everything. There's a beauty closet, where you can just go and, try stuff. So it was very much like a beauty culture. It was really fun.
Do they give you a limit to the closet? Because knowing me and my capabilities of like handling large amounts of product, I would just be like, shove it all in. What is there a limit? You get in trouble?
It's on the honor system.
Oh.
So, but there is, it is awesome because you can find your shade. If you're a foundation, right, and you don't know what foundation shade you are, it gives the opportunity to like really dial things in, which is nice.
It's a very cool perk. I think with corporations, you do get a lot of perks, right? There's a lot of perks with jobs.
Yeah, there's a lot of perks, especially from a product perspective. I mean, there's so many great brands in the building, so we have a company store where you just get a lot of access to things. And so it's a lot of the perks that come with come with working at a big company. So discounts, great benefits. They have really fun events, right? Because I was working on, when I was in cosmetics, influencer marketing was also just becoming huge. If you think like back 7 years ago, when I started, expertise was just really growing. So, the events, the influencer marketing, just all those really like fun things, you probably wouldn't get to do it at a lot of other places.
And look how far like the influencing field has come now. That's like a legit career. And you think it's been about 7 years, you think, from influencers?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably been, I'm sure it's been a lot longer, but, from when I started to where it is now, it's just next level. Beauty influencers have become, so integral to digital marketing success and the way you get your messages out there, and to be, that's like this trust source of truth, like that you're trusted, your consumers trusted recommendations. And I really think it was COVID really escalated.
Yeah,
for sure.
People aren't able to like go shop. I am like a I could go to CVS and just go up and down aisles and like get a thrill, you know?
Mhm.
So I am like the consumer who's like looking at all the stuff, like sell it to me, sell it, you know, and like get me on just like an ad on, you know, Instagram. And I'm like, oh, I do need an lead liner. Like I have to have it. But I do agree with you. Like during COVID, where were we going to consume?
Mhm.
Like it was all digital.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. And you know, when you, I think if you, any publication, I think you read on digital media spend, they will tell you there's been a huge shift, you know, away from traditional TV, right, into digital marketing. But even within that digital marketing, the spend on influencer content versus just branded, you know, product shots, it's like imperative that you have an influencer strategy as part of your digital marketing.
Mhm.
okay. I have a question or two. All right. I know we kind of talked about how in the beauty industry, there are some like overlapping roles. How can someone leverage transferable skills while like transitioning between industries?
I think it's about how you market yourself. You know, when you go into these companies, I think I mean, first, there's probably two steps, honestly. One, you need to get in the door, right? And, you know, you need the in. And I think that's really about, you know, when you go and you have the conversations, you're networking. A lot of times I think you go into companies and they don't, maybe you're not talking to the expert, you know, that has the same expertise as you do. And you need to make it relevant. I think that's that's the biggest piece, and really, you know, break it down and show how your skills can help the business, right? And you think about real world examples and what the applications are, right? So if I'm thinking, you know, my background is and expertise is in database marketing, data driven analytics, and like how does that relate to coming into a beauty industry, right? And I'm not in product development, I'm in digital marketing. So it's about, you know, your like-minded audiences in the market, right? And what does personalization look like? How do you find, you know, maybe somebody that's more like a basic lipstick user versus somebody that likes full on glam, right? And so how do you use your data expertise to explain how you're going to get the person, you know, a person interested in cosmetics from how are you going to identify those like two different audiences from each other so you're marketing to the right person. So I think it's about relevance.
Question about data. How
Yeah.
does one get said data? Is that an odd question? I mean, where does the data come from? Is it just by like what people are buying, or like what is the technology that makes the data? Right? Because I hear data and I'm like computer, but then I'm like, what? How does the computer know?
Mhm.
Like who's giving? Where? How do you know? How does the data know?
So I love this question because there's several different types, right? And so when you're kind of in my field, everybody talks about 1P data, which is first party data. And it comes there's two types. There's anonymous, which is like you're just on a site, you visit any website, brand.com, right? And it's collecting, if you've heard the term cookie, right? It's
I
collecting
accept all. All cookies. I don't know.
love you. We all the dating people love you.
That's where it's from the cookies.
Yeah,
That's what you're saying.
that's part of it. So we don't know too much about you at that point, right? Except that you're this human that visits certain parts of the website, right? And can infer some things. But then there's like, hey, you want a 20% discount for that first purchase? And that is yeah, email, exactly. Or or your phone number. And that is the connection point that everything is really based off of. And then, you know, and then they're like, take a quiz, you know, tell us about yourself.
Makes sense.
That does make sense.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay.
These
And then you store it.
things. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then companies store it, and it actually can be used in how you're targeted in media. It can, if you come back to the website, if you buy something, then it, it just continues to personalize your experience.
I heavily ghost the data people because I will make carts. I'll just put my phone number. I will do everything. And then I all of a sudden have a come to like, what are you doing? And just X out of everything.
Yeah.
So sorry if I messed your data.
We'll still ask you if you want to come back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I do. I get the like, hey, we see something in your heart.
You haven't completed
You have something.
Okay, I get that too. They're trying to collect my data. I got it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you accept all cookies?
I do not actually. I do not. I'm selective. I know. Yeah.
That's
so on tens. What's that?
I said I feel like that's a hot take, not accepting all the cookies.
Yeah. And I want to say always say yes, but
yeah, for your data.
For my data. Yeah.
All right. I know you kind of talked about like showing off like strong points and like bringing like what you can bring to the table for the company and stuff that you're kind of shooting for within the beauty world. But like when you want to stand out in an interview, like what would you like have someone focus on, like personal achievements rather than like team efforts? Like tell me a little bit, like how would you approach that?
Yeah, so this is a big one for me. Super, super important. As somebody that's hired, a bunch of people and also, looked at a lot of resumes and done some like resume coaching, especially for more junior positions. I think, people get wrapped up in like the team element. They were part of a team and they want to talk about like the things, like the big things that the team did. But I would always encourage people to talk about what you did as part of the team, because as your hiring manager or somebody bringing into the company, like I want to know how you contribute, right? And are you proactive, right? Can you problem solve? Can you come up with like interesting projects on your own? Do you understand how to talk about results? I think it also, because then it's also like, does that person, can they function independently, right? So it's really important, I think, even in the words in your resume, right? That it's very based on the things that you did personally to make that team better. And those are the things I look to hear in an interview. I will always say to the person, if they're like, the we is my banned word in an interview, and I will stop a person. I'd be like, but what did you do? And I always want to hear, that somebody has a point of view, right, on something. Like, do they speak up in meetings, or like, were they up against some kind of, tension or pushback, right? They have somehow overcome or worked through, or like came to use collaboration, right, to get through a hard point or come to an agreement somehow. So those are all like the things that I look to hear. And I've hired some junior people with zero beauty experience and not a ton of even experience in the specific role maybe that I was hiring for, but just did such a great job articulating their potential, right, and their skill set and their like contribution, that I'd like hire them immediately.
I love that. I feel like that's really honestly really nice to hear, I think, for maybe some people, just because when you're going into that interview moment, you're kind of like, what do they want? What do they want? And you're like, I just want you to tell me about you and how good you are. Like,
exactly.
When you were saying that, Lisa, it reminded me of like when you apply to a college, right? And you have to write your like why do you want me at your college? Because I'm capable of all of this myself, which, yeah, I guess maybe some people going into the corporate environment, they want you to realize that they can work with a group. But as you say, right, you want to focus on that person's individual talent.
Yeah, exactly. It's so important, and I think especially, and I worked at a company that was majority, was over 50, probably 60% women at least. And it's just something we're not great at. Yeah. Honestly, right? It's just like giving ourselves props and taking ownership of of our own wins. And so it takes it takes some encouragement. Sometimes it takes some pulling it out of people.
Very helpful for me because I have a 20-year-old daughter who's starting to apply for jobs. And, I'll definitely have this conversation with her to, feature yourself and your own achievements within a group. That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And, it's funny because I brought somebody in and had this exact conversation with her before her interview. And I told her, even if you have to talk to yourself in the mirror to get yourself used to saying it, right? And hearing it come out of your own mouth, right? It's super important. And you really have to think about and go back and think about the things that you did. And especially for somebody young, right? Who maybe it's not like they have 10 years of corporate experience to pull from, right? And think about even if it was an internship, right? To just think about those little moments that you're really proud of and you're like, I did this on my own. Those are the things that you should talk about.
Self-starter.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that kind of actually leads into your mentoring. Sounds like you apply that to giving advice, right? To people.
Yeah, I would call it unofficial mentoring. But I did work but I did work with a lot of, junior team members inside my team, from other teams that I had left that I stayed in touch with and just really wanted to make sure they were continuing on a path to development. It's, especially in a really complex organization, you need somebody just looking out for you, I think, a lot of times. So especially when they're a talent and maybe they're not the most outgoing person, right? Or they're kind of like a quiet star, they need sometimes support and some encouragement. But those are the kinds of things where, those little bits of information can be really helpful. We were talking about giving yourself, the kudos that you deserve. But I think one of those things is, well, there's probably a couple of things, but one of the two things that I always say to my teams is, one, share your results. Always, yeah, it's so important because your teams are so big. People have their own business problems going on, right? So it's really important to get your name out there and so people know the things that you're working on and the things that you've done. And don't leave it for the end of the year to your review, because then you won't even remember, honestly. So just true story. When I was at T-Mobile, I was working on one of their smaller brands at one point, and I was like, nobody's going to know me, or what I do or what I'm working on. And so I would keep printouts of a scorecard I made for myself on my desk. And when one of the VPs would walk by, and it's so dorky, but when one of the VPs would walk by, I would literally grab it off my desk, run after him, and just hand it to him, you know? Yeah. But that little bit, it had my name on it. But it's those little things, those little moments, just to give yourself, just to make sure people know what you're killing yourself, every day. So people need to know about it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Having pride in your work and your achievements. And yeah, as women, I think we need to do more of that.
Absolutely.
We're always thinking maybe the props to go to somebody else, or you don't want to be the center of attention. But I like your approach, Lisa. It's amazing.
Now I'm curious, where did you find this confidence, or who mentored you to get to this mindset? Where was this? And was this from family? Was this from friends? Was this from a coworker? What gave you the knowledge? Was it just inherent, make a scorecard, show the boss, I want to is it a competitive thing? What started this inside of you?
That is a really great question. Because I wasn't always like that. I started my career in advertising, and I remember like my early years, they were hard. Like people were mean, and it was really hard to get ahead. And so maybe I think part of it was once I went client side, I realized coming from my agency life, I had a set of expertise that a lot of people in product marketing did not have, which was how to talk to consumers, which is really what you learn in advertising. And so I think part of it was that realization, like just the desire to educate people. But also, when I was at T-Mobile, like when you introduced me, when we said we were it was our uncarrier moment, which is really when our CEO, John Ledger, he just kind of flipped the entire wireless industry on his head. And he's a super, super competitive guy. If you read any case studies about him, he will tell you it was just his nature. And he's a really big personality. And I don't know, I honestly like think some of that rubbed off of me. Yeah. I don't know. I think because I would say it wasn't as competitive when I was in the agency world, but after that and realizing how the corporate world exists and how you get bonuses and how you get promoted, it's just, you need to be a little bit of a showman.
You should agree like saying like fake it so you make it almost.
100%.
Yeah. Okay.
100%.
It's like that almost like, I know I can speak from my experience as like a young apprentice. I would see hairstylists like finishing their clients and like flicking people's hair back and like doing all these cool things. And I was like, that's confidence. I don't know what that I don't technically know what that's doing other than like continuing to move apart like all over the place. But I felt like everyone was just like, ooh, flip, flip, flip. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And then I started doing that with clients. And I did feel like I had this like, I'm like, I'm doing what they're doing. That like, stop. You're in the room with somebody so competitive, so successful. You're like, I see what they got. Like, I'm going to take some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it works.
Yeah. Absolutely. Sometimes it's fake it till you make it, and you're having conversations until you really just try to like figure it out, and be like, I'm going to talk to this person because I'm not actually 100% sure what they do, but I'm going to tell them what I do. And like, maybe we'll figure out how to, where the commonalities are and how to move the business forward together. So it's definitely, you always have something to bring to the table, right? And when you're talking to somebody that has no idea what you do, it sounds really cool. So so just make the most of it.
Get this kind of knowledge with like how to almost like level up and, get to the next thing. I feel for us, it's kind of just like build a clientele, work with it's like, this is such an insightful conversation. It's fascinating. It's so fascinating. In your experience, what are the benefits of being a generalist versus a specialist in today's job market and having a personal brand? Do you feel like that benefits that, like who you are and what you bring to the table, but like having your own like identity and brand?
Yeah, I think it matters. It depends on what you want to do, right? And that's where your personal brand is gonna come in, right? So companies, I think, they're going one of two ways, right? And David Ogilvy, the legendary ad man, right? I actually saw a video of him the other day, and he said he wishes that he had more generalists in his agency, right? So a copywriter might, for 6 months, do a rotation as a account person, and his account person would be a copywriter for 6 months, right? So they could live in each other's shoes and see how the other's world is, their everyday life is. And it helps you, it just helps you be a better business person in whatever you do, So, but I think it's when you're talking about your personal brand. So if you want to take PR, for example, right? If you want to be a PR person, then, and that's, that's your life goal. Maybe you want to open up your own boutique PR agency. Like you need to go full on, like that's your brand. I'm a PR person. That's what I do. I'm amazing at it. I have all these contacts. But, the other side of that is being a generalist is kind of gathering up all your different experiences. And there are a lot of jobs out there, I think, that really benefit from people kind of like my job, right? Which is called marketing technology right now, but it's really website, social, CRM, database marketing. And I've done kind of all of those at some point. So I'm very much a generalist, and I And so I kind of position myself as somebody that can come into an organization and fill a lot of opportunities, especially if an organization is very flat, right? And they don't have a lot of teams and a lot of staff. That in a small organization, you can come in and manage a lot of different things. And so, yeah, it really depends on how you want to market yourself and what your interests are. I personally don't want to be a specialist because I don't want to me, it's like pigeonholing myself into one area of opportunity, right? And so you can go super, super deep and be an expert in like the technical aspects and the marketing aspects of building a website. But I'm curious in how websites work with data capture, like we were talking about somebody's data capture, and then what happens when somebody captures that data, right? So I'm interested in the whole consumer journey. That's what I'm super passionate about, and the psychology of that, how you get a person to convert at all those different points. So that's kind of where I focus my, I would say, like personal brand on. So it really depends, but there's tons of benefits to being a generalist. I think more people should do it. I wish more companies would give people more opportunities to do rotations. I think their employees would be able to work across divisions and break down silos much more easily. It's my personal opinion.
And this relates at all, but it's such a important, popular topic right now is AI.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that must just be turning your industry upside down, right? So
it's everywhere.
Yeah, the depth of it. Yeah,
Shaking it.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's in everything. It's in everything you do these days, and probably places that you don't see, from content development, the articles you see on websites, just things on the, we do on the back end as far as helping us create our own internal presentations.
It's going to help you. It can help you become a generalist too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because there's just so many opportunities to engage it and to use it to like teach yourself to do some work for you. So if I wanted to create an Instagram post, I could jump on AI and do that. Yeah, it's been honestly a game changer. So especially as I work for a much smaller company now, and it's the core of efficiency, right? Cost saving. It's amazing. So
You just cost saving actually leads me to my next question. I don't believe no. How has investing in your 401k or financial planning played a role in your overall career and growth and stability? I know me and you talked about this, and that's why I brought this question up, because I feel like on my personal journey, there was one person, maybe two or three in the salon environment that I worked in that was like, you need a 401k. And I was like, don't know what that is, and just kind of walked away. And you even gave me a good book to read and like understand finance. I did just buy it. You sent it to me like literally last night. But I did buy it. So I know you mentor and I know you help a lot of people. So I feel like if there's anyone listening that kind of hasn't taken that step, or like, really, what am I doing here? I'd love to hear your take.
yeah. Listen, people, invest in your 401k. Don't just let them take money out of your paycheck, but invest that money into a stock or a mutual fund or something. A lot of people don't realize that it doesn't just get invested, and you actually have to take that step to invest it. So I think that's rule number one. It's so important, especially the earlier you get in. I mean, your money just grows over time. Average return on stock market is something like 8 to 10% a year, which is much better than you're just going to get if you leave it in a savings account or a checking account, trying to gain, interest. Most companies have some kind of match rate. That is free money that they're giving you. Right. So tell your daughter as soon as she gets her first job, there's usually a percentage that you have to take out of your paychecks in order to get your match. Right. Take that. At least take that as the minimum, because it's you're throwing away money if you don't. And so it's your way to financial freedom and early retirement when Social Security no longer exists. And I think the other thing is, you vest over a certain period of time, right? So you might not be 100% vested and get all that money that the company provide, that free money. Sometimes it takes 3 to 5 years for them to give you 100% of those dollars, which a lot of times will keep people in a job, because you leave and you have to give that up. It could potentially be a lot of money to give up. So I think from that perspective, you also need to make sure that those 3 to 5 years, you're happy in what you're doing, and you're making the most of that time in the company and taking full advantage of learning opportunities and growth opportunities, right? And if it's a big organization, like try out something else. I would say stay until you're 100% vested, right? Get everything you can out from that company, and then figure out, what you want to do. Do you want to stay? Are there long-term incentives? If you're a high performer, right, you should ask about those. Make sure you know what your bonuses are and your bonus percentages are, and that that those are you, again, going back to sharing your results, making sure that you're showing that you meet your KPIs so you can get that on, get your full bonus. And that also gets percentage of that also goes into your 401k. So
it's the advice that I think the younger generations don't necessarily want to hear right away, because they're like, look at me and I got all this money now. But it is so important, like, have that money saved, start younger,
And it's not hard. The book that I gave you, I'm just going to plug it. It's The Simple Path to Wealth. It's really like the easiest investing strategy you will ever need. It's like invest in 1 or 2 things, just leave it, don't touch it, don't pay attention to it. Markets go up and down. In the long term, they go up. And if it goes down, invest more. So that is, it's a great benefit that companies offer. And I don't think people take enough advantage of those things.
All right. So I asked my last question, and Cara, you have one more question to ask. And we ask this of all of our guests.
Yes, we do.
Our final gorgeous question.
Are you ready, Lisa?
I think so.
What does beauty mean to you?
It's a good question. I think coming from a beauty company, I think, the one thing that's so amazing is there's almost no standards in beauty, right? Like everything, anyone in their personal expression, he, she, them, they, right, is just, they all bring their own things to the table and to the world, and however they choose to present themselves, I think is just amazing and beautiful. Being yourself, being creative, being not creative, I think is amazing.
So much for joining us. This is a long time coming for me. I want to talk.
Yeah. Amazing. And my hair looks amazing. I just had it done yesterday.
Yeah, she did.
Most importantly.
Yes. All right. Thank you both. Have a great night.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching another episode of Beauty Break. I'm Allison.
And I'm Cara.
And don't forget to like and subscribe so you will always be up to date with the next episode drop.
Bye.
This is a Based Here production.